Welcome back to the Alec Lewis Show. I am your host, Alec Lewis. This is Wednesday, July 23rd, episode 98, the beginning of training camp. Holy cow, we made it. Had Jersey mics, stood inside the indoor. As you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see I am inside the TCO Performance Center on the first floor, 2 floors above me. I'm sure the coaches are in the offices going through how players performed, how they're going to structure the depth chart. You can probably feel the energy, but was excited to be back out here. Really enjoyed the opportunity for this thing to ramp up, and we've got lots of thoughts from what I saw out there today. We'll talk J.J. McCarthy. We'll talk Josh Metellus' contract, talk some of the backup quarterbacks, and some other stuff. I've got some little nuggets and players that stood out to me, certain aspects of what I saw on day one that I feel like are relevant for you guys to hear. So appreciate you being here. If you're new, we do this 2 times a week. We started it last year right around this time, and we've got a giveaway for episode 100. I've extended a little bit. You got to do 3 things. They're all in the description. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Go like us. Follow us on Instagram and on Twitter. Do those things. You can join the giveaway. This show is always presented by First Resource Bank. If you don't know about it, it's a member FDIC bank in the Minneapolis area, run by Tim Siegley, Aaron Siegley, Charlie Anderson, and they've got branches all over the place. Their online banking platform is one that I have not found. It's better than any that I've found. So highly recommend First Resource Bank. They are Vikings fans. You walk into the branch on Washington, you go to the front desk, you talk to the woman, Christy, who is sitting there, and she will talk to you about J.J. McCarthy and how excited she is for the season. And so that is the type of bank that you probably want, really, big supporters of the local community. So please go check First Resource Bank out. We're not going to waste much time, but the last bit of housekeeping, if you don't know me, I write for The Athletic. I cover the team day to day. We're going to have, pretty much daily stories throughout camp and into the season. Have a lot of stuff that I have been working on, that I am working on, that I'm excited for you guys to read. Had a story Monday. Spent some time with J.J. McCarthy's longtime coach, Greg Holcomb, and then talked to a ton of people around him and enjoyed writing that one. Just a little bit of tidbit, of what's to come. So looking forward to the writing. It's what I love. It's what I enjoy. The people stories. Those who know me know I talk about it a lot, but I really I love the job. I'm grateful for it every day and excited to get another season rolling. Let's go. Let's begin. J.J. McCarthy, you guys are sitting there, whether you're you're on a run, you're listening to this podcast, you're in the car, you're listening to this podcast, or you're sitting on the couch and watching it on YouTube. You're probably like, all right, Alec, you've talked 3 minutes. How did J.J. McCarthy look? It was the first time you've seen him in training camp since last year when he tore his meniscus after the Raiders preseason game. And I'm not going to draw this out. And I'll tell you that, J.J. McCarthy, it was everything you would want to see from him on a day one of training camp. I'll start with, he held a press conference. He did kind of a press conference early in the day on Wednesday, kind of previewing things, giving some, feel for how where his mindset is going into this training camp. This was right after the walkthrough, and he talked for maybe 7.5 minutes. It might have been the shortest press conference he's done, and I got the sense that he was almost like, all right, we've done a lot of talking. There have been a lot of organized team activities. There's been some mini camps, but now it's time to really get this thing going. It's time to compete, and you just got the sense that, like, all right, it's probably enough talking. It's time to show it. And then out there on the practice field, and we were actually indoors because it was pouring outside. You began the day hearing that it might be Manila-like humidity, and it was, swampy in the indoor practice facility. And the first thing you look for, and this is really in a tribute to the conversation I had with Pete Bursich last week. And I asked Pete, who is, he's been around this game so long, has been in conversations that I will only dream of being a part of with coaching staffs and in locker rooms and all that stuff. And so I asked him, like, you're me, you're out on the practice field. or in the indoor watching J.J. McCarthy, what's the first thing you're looking for? What would you be looking for if you were me? And his response last week was like, it begins with, is the operation running smoothly? Is he getting in and out of the huddle quick enough? Is he getting the line of scrimmage? Is there a lot of congestion, or is it, we've got in and out of the huddle, we're at the line of scrimmage, we're calling the play, we're snapping it, we're confident, then we'll return to the huddle and do it again. And with J.J. McCarthy today on day one, it didn't feel like there were any pre-snap issues. Now, it'll be interesting over the course of camp to start to identify how much pre-snap is on Ryan Kelly's plate, how much of, sliding the line of scrimmage is that on Ryan Kelly, who has, occupied and held that responsibility in the past. But just for today, you felt like J.J. McCarthy had complete command stepping in and out of the huddle and stepping the line of scrimmage and making things go against the defense that is, as always, very shape-shifting prior to the snap. Like Brian Flores was doing what he does. Ivan Pace Jr. was walking up to the line of scrimmage. And so you're J.J. McCarthy, you're evaluating, you're thinking about where you're going to go with the football post-snap, what reads are open, what concepts are available. And he just seemed very comfortable in that situation, in that environment. And that was very positive just from the get-go. Now, and I wrote this for the story just on what I saw today, but most people probably are going to talk about the throw that J.J. McCarthy made today to Jordan Addison. And the Vikings social media crew put it out there, and you'll see it. J.J. McCarthy takes the snap, drops back. His eyes are positioned down the middle of the field. He recognizes that Jordan Addison is streaking down the right sideline, and then he drills him in stride, and Jordan Addison walks in the end zone. And after the completion, you heard some of the players watching from behind hollering. Aaron Jones walked up and dabbed J.J. McCarthy up. And it was the type of energy that you started to see a little bit in last year's camp. And for those guys to rally around him in that moment, I'm sure for him, it was pretty amazing. And but for me, I mean, my takeaway from that specific throw is it seemed like he identified it quick enough. And that's, as I entered last week talking about, so much of what I'll be looking for is command and processing. So from a processing, identifying the defense and making the decision, that was great. And then he completed the throw. So that play, again, I understand why people will talk about it, and I don't want to minimize that happening on day one to start to build some confidence. But the thing for me, it might have even been the very next play. But J.J. McCarthy drops back, goes through his progressions, and this was what really stood out to me, and then I began to just pick up on through the course of the practice was, he would drop back, on this specific play, drop back, he went through his progressions, didn't really see anything he liked. Then he drifted out of the pocket, and you could see him keeping the eyes downfield. And I would imagine at that split second, you can either try to fit it into a window on the second level, and you see quarterbacks do it all the time, throw late over the middle of the field, and then it's intercepted. J.J. McCarthy did not throw it. He ended up, he's moving, he's looking, he doesn't see anybody, and then he just tossed it out of bounds. And after the play, Josh McCown, you could tell that Josh McCown liked seeing JJ not put the ball in harm's way. And I mean, for me, that was really over the course of this practice, beyond the operational stuff, beyond the deep throw to Jordan Addison, there was a comeback route to Justin Jefferson that was pretty good. He was unafraid to throw over the middle, even if it wasn't completed. But it was the decision-making of being willing to just toss that ball out of bounds and not try to be a hero. It was over the course of practice, going through the progressions quick, and hitting Aaron Jones on the swing pattern, which was a de facto check down. It's going through progressions and the quick hit to TJ Hawkinson over the middle that was check down-ish. I like seeing that stuff mostly because you hear any quarterback talk, and it's can you go through progressions quick enough? And then can you just, take your cash and move forward from a completion standpoint? That is, it's so much of playing quarterback in the NFL. So much of it is just the non-sexy plays And for a guy who I just know in J.J. McCarthy, like he wants to compete. He wants to prove himself. He wants to prove, to the team, to teammates, to coaches that he is the guy. For him to, like, in some ways place that aside in some of on these reps and just kind of do what you should do if you're making optimal decision making as a quarterback. That just really it stood out to me. Like I said, it wasn't all perfect. I mean, there was an over the middle throw that felt a little bit late. In my mind, when I see that stuff, it always goes, and people are going to freak out. But, Aaron Rodgers used to always talk about one of the things he learned early on. It was just not throwing late over the middle of the field. So there was that. There was J.J. McCarthy tried a seam ball to Justin Jefferson, and Byron Murphy was there. And it wasn't really near picked off, but he deflected it. And so that play existed as well. So, again, it wasn't all perfect, but I just felt like for day one, his physicality, his frame looked good. The velocity looked really good. There was a pass kind of in some of the 7-on-7 pre-team drills where he had some layering to the sideline, which I like seeing that. So it'll be very interesting to see how they build on it. Like Kevin O'Connell has said, this is the acclimation period, and obviously they're not in full pads yet. So to make too much of anything would feel pretty foolish from my standpoint. But entering today, I mean, there were just no red flags. Like you look around the league, and I was observing some of the reports from Chicago, and this is nothing to, I wasn't there, so there's only so much I can say. But it's like you heard that Caleb Williams threw a pick six on the first play. You heard that the Bears were having trouble lining up. And you had quotes from coaches and players, and like there wasn't any of that. It felt like a very professional operation today, run by J.J. McCarthy when the first team offense was out there. And there were motions, and you imagine some of the play calls were probably fairly lengthy in some capacity. So, again, a couple of things I'm looking forward to is, can you keep that consistency as they build more infrastructure of what the offense is eventually going to be? Like, can you keep it humming at that speed? Can he continue to be accurate? Can his decision-making be as optimal as possible? And then what is the communication / just process like with Ryan Kelly? How much is Ryan Kelly on his play? How much is J.J. McCarthy handling? How much are they working together? Like that stuff, some of the nitty-gritty, to me, is just going to be interesting to watch, and it's important. But, the takeaway, like the summary, the headline, very professional operation for a day one of training camp for J.J. McCarthy, which was really good to see. Now we'll segue a little bit. Any questions you got, I would say toss them in the comment section. If you're listening on Spotify, there's a comment section there. If you're listening on YouTube, there's a pretty extensive comment section where you can rip me down there. On social media, I'm available for ripping there as well. So any questions you got, any curiosities, I love communicating with you guys directly. It's part of the reason I started this podcast in the first place. So feel free to toss those my way. But we'll segue to the backups. And the backup quarterback conversation, you could probably argue, is it relevant? Is it, like, if you're going to the backup, is it even worth a question? Or is it worth substantial evaluation and thought and all of that? But there was a reason that the Vikings wanted to bring Daniel Jones back. And then once he decided to go to Indianapolis and thrust himself into that opportunity, there's a reason we've talked and written about the backup quarterback situation as much as we have. J.J. McCarthy just hasn't been durable for a full NFL training camp in his career. And so and they're spending $350 million plus on this roster with expectations, having not won a playoff game. With this regime. So to ask questions about, in the event of worst case scenario that nobody wants to talk about, I don't even want to talk about it. Like what would happen? That's why you had the stories that were written. That's why you had the conversation about, Ryan Tannehill or Joe Flacco or all of those names that we spent I mean, not an insignificant amount of time going through. It was for a reason, and like I tried not to make too much of anything I saw from Sam Howell this spring, mostly because it was the spring, but also because he had just arrived. You're in a new system, all of that, and I don't want to make too much of one practice because we could go out there tomorrow, and we will be out there tomorrow and every day after that, and he could begin to look phenomenal as he gets more comfortable. But just for today, all I'll say is that like it was a pretty disappointing day for Sam Howell. I mean, there was an interception. I mean, the play that most people would probably talk about is the interception over the middle where you didn't see many people around, and he just tossed it kind of to Ivan Pace, and the defense was hooting and hollering, running the other way. But if I'm not mistaken, the play after that at the line of scrimmage, it was kind of a jumble and didn't get the snap off, and it just, you started to get the sense that, well, yes, like it is the backup, and yes, that crew is going against the first team defense, and yes, Brian Flores is throwing out looks that even I haven't seen before defensively, specifically with this team and with this unit. You just started to get the sense that there was a little bit of like angst over, I don't know if angst is the right word, but just frustration maybe just over the lack of fluidity that group kind of showed offensively. And so again, it was the pick six, then it was the false start, pre-snap issue. And then there was just some over the middle, like not progressing quick enough, late to throw to a check down on the right side that was deflected eventually by Kobe King, the linebacker. It didn't feel as pinpoint as you would like it to be. And again, like I say that knowing that I've watched the backup of years past, Nick Mullins, in some of these training camp practices, and it hasn't been spectacular. So not going to make too much of it, but just telling you guys what I saw straight down the middle today, and hope and trust that like you guys are rational and smart enough to know that, again, things turn. Guys have a bad practice. You have a bad day at work. I have a bad day writing, bad day recording the podcast. It's just part of it. But you would like to see growth and improvement and consistency. And I don't think I'm asking too much to in that regard, as I just evaluate this team. Brett Rypien, one of the other backups, also threw probably what would have been a pick six. It was a Van Ginkel special, and I was laughing because Josh Metellus afterwards was asked about it, and Metellus is like, "They not watch the tape?" Like what? It was a classic Metellus kind of reaction, but it was your patented Van Ginkel special where he's, instead of rushing directly at the passer from the end of the line of scrimmage, he somehow tips the ball to himself and intercepts a Brett Rypien throw. And you could tell that offensively for this team to do that with knowing that this guy is there because they've seen this guy do it over and over and time again, that was pretty demoralizing for the offense. Brett Rypien had a throw down the left sideline that I felt like was pretty accurate. Didn't end up getting caught. So, and he didn't get as many reps as Sam Howell. But the backup quarterback situation is going to be one that I watch fairly closely because, look, the Vikings didn't really give much of anything to acquire Sam Howell. It's a sensible, just like Dart and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah in this front office. They are very open and willing always, if options and opportunities present themselves or need to, that they get creative. And that's one of the key characteristics of Kwesi's time here. So it'll be interesting to follow that group on a day-to-day basis. And again, I don't want to mitigate like the challenge of what this defense is. You've got personnel groupings that make zero sense. You got, there are times where it feels like there's three off-ball linebackers, but you got Dallas Turner. Is he an off-ball linebacker? Is he an edge rusher? Then you got three safeties. You got Josh Metellus deep. Then he's covering the nick. Like it is a complex challenge now. And I would ventured to bet that Sam Howell on first day of training camp has never seen anything close to what he saw today from a defense. So maybe he expected that things would kind of be eased into, but that position on this roster is one I'll definitely be following. I mentioned Josh Metellus, and I'll segue right to him. He talked after practice. He participated pretty much. It felt like it was full. Like I said, there were times where he was kind of the deep safety playing in the half field. There were times where he was in his usual role in the box. And after practice, he was he was bubbly. He was energetic. He was his usual very aware and likable self. I mean, there's a reason a guy who was a 6th-round pick who carved out a role on special teams has become what he's become for this defense and in this community, in this town where you guys listen to this probably love Josh Metellus. I mean, how crazy is that for a guy who was, again, a 6th-round pick, competing with a guy named Brian Cole 5 years ago. That's just the type of guy that Josh is. And he was asked about the contract, seemed optimistic about, the dialogue. I've said many times on this podcast and in writing that the Vikings have an exceptional relationship with Josh Metellus' agent, Drew Rosenhaus. They orchestrated an extension earlier this offseason with Drew Rosenhaus on behalf of Andrew Van Ginkel. Jonathan Grenard is rep by Drew Rosenhaus. I mean, I could go on because there are a lot of guys on this roster who are. And so Josh sounded as if conversations have been positive from that standpoint. He made a point, and I this is who Josh Metellus is, and it's probably why you guys feel the way you do about him. He's like, look, how can I be the captain, the leader that I have been and that I want to continue to be for this team if I am holding out or holding in or whatever phrase you're going to use in this era of the NFL? He's like, I want to be there on the front lines. I want to, breathe life into that group the way that I always do to be the guy who I've always been. It was a very heady kind of take from him. Again, unsurprising, just having worked around him and watched him and seen him for multiple years. But I mean, he was even saying like, it's good to see you guys. Good to see you guys smile. It was classic Josh Metellus. One question that was asked of him that I thought was astute and it was worth mentioning is something we've talked about with his contract in particular is what it must be like for him, who was very close to Cam Bynum and watching Cam Bynum negotiate with the Vikings up until the start of last season and then essentially just bet on himself, play out the year, head into free agency, and then cash in big. And Byron Murphy Jr., one of his other teammates, did pretty much a similar thing. I can't speak more in terms of how much they negotiated as part of an extension, but I do know that Byron Murphy essentially bet on himself, rolled the dice, got to where he was going to enter the open market and netted a very big deal from the Minnesota Vikings. So one reporter astutely asked Josh Metellus, like, do you see those guys and does that give you or does that push you in any way to want to take a similar approach with your contract where you're just betting on yourself? And Josh Metellus was like, look, I understand. He was like, I understand the question, but Cam Bynum was in a different situation. Cam Bynum was coming off his rookie contract. He hadn't already received a multi-million-dollar deal the way that Josh Metellus did a couple years ago. And so Josh was like, look, my situation's different. And it is. Josh Metellus' contract situation is, I mean, it's complex. Do you value him as a safety? That's what he's listed as. That's what he played, but he plays so much in the box. So do you value him as a linebacker, but he also plays a lot in the slot? So do you value him as a slot defender, or do you value him as the guy who can do all that? And how many of those guys across the league really are there? If you lose him, can you replace him with a guy who has all those skill sets? Like physically, other guys might be able to do it, but I often, and I've said this, one of the aspects that Josh Metellus that makes him special is his mental bandwidth to be able to handle all of what Brian Flores asks of him. And finding another guy who can do that, I don't think it's like some easy button that you can just push. And so, again, that complicates his overall all value. Now, Josh Metellus while he did say his situation is different than a Cam Bynum or a Byron Murphy Jr. who bet on themselves. He's like, look, I've been betting on myself my whole career. And then maybe that's like the classic, professional athlete feeling they're doubted type of, characteristic. But it really did feel like Josh Metellus is like, look, if I have to go into this season without a new contract and believe that I'm going to put together the best year of my career, like I feel comfortable doing that. Josh Metellus essentially said as much. So, wasn't surprised at all by the way he handled it. If you guys, I imagine you're sitting there and you're like, all right, Alec, well, you cover this team. So tell us, do you expect this to happen? Tell us with Metellus, do you expect this to happen imminently? I don't know if I'd go that far. I do know that I have enough confidence in the relationship between the Vikings and Josh Metellus' representative in Drew Rosenhaus that it wouldn't be the craziest thing, but I also I just sense a professionalism that I'm not sure if it, maybe the conversation happens later in training camp. Maybe, Drew Rosenhaus comes out here and that takes care of things. But in the meantime, it just feels like Josh Metellus has kind of come to terms or is at peace with, like, this is what I feel like I deserve. We'll try to work that, make that happen. In the worst case scenario that it doesn't, like, he has the conviction in himself. So it'll be interesting, obviously, to continue to follow it. But I felt like, again, to see him out there on the field, it's for you guys wanting to see this team win games. I imagine it's probably a better feeling than, okay, Josh isn't out there. Then there's increased angst. Then there's not turmoil, but there's questions where you're just not really fully focused on the actual football of it. You're wondering, is Theo Jackson going to take that role? Are we going to have to rely on Jay Ward? Like, with Josh Metellus on the field, all of that stuff is kind of goes by the wayside. Couple other things that just stood out that I wanted to mention here. Dallas Turner, and this is, like, I'll get some jokes from the folks over at KFAN because this is very PA Paul Allen-ish in terms of, commenting on guys' body types. And I'm starting to make a brand out of myself doing it with, having talked the way I did about Jalen Naylor throughout the spring. But Dallas Turner, he's probably been asked how much, if he's put on weight or any of that, but he just looks bigger. Like, there's just no question about it. In a strength way. He was standing. It used to feel like, and this is pretty anecdotal, but it used to feel like when you'd be out there at the practice field, you'd be watching the edge rushers all together, and you'd see Dallas Turner next to Jonathan Grenard. There'd be like a fair amount of difference between the two, and it feels like, watching them two walk next to each other today, there wasn't like some drastic step down from size and body type. So that was, it just stood out to me. It's something I wanted to mention. Didn't get to talk to Dallas today, but I will continuously be looking forward to seeing the types of personnel groupings that he is involved with throughout this camp, because it could be very creative. Wouldn't put it past Brian Flores to operate in that way. Ty Felton, the rookie receiver from Maryland, he looked pretty good today. I just thought running routes, like, it didn't look out of place. But maybe the more notable aspect of him was he was returning kicks and punts. And while part of the reason the Vikings loved him in the draft, and they did, it felt even before the draft that he was a guy who was squarely on their radar coming out of Maryland. There's the connection with Keenan McCardell, obviously, and Keenan had gone up, to see him, to work him out, I believe, at the pro day. But one of the other aspects was just how committed Ty Felton was to special teams, to being good on special teams, to taking pride in special teams. And yet, I would say, you go through the stats, like, he didn't return a ton of punts and kicks at Maryland, and yet today in this first training camp practice, he was out there fielding kicks, fielding punts, and looked fairly smooth doing it. Now, this isn't me sitting here on day one saying that I expect the person replacing Brandon Powell as your punt returner to be Ty Felton, or or replacing Ty Chandler kick return to be Ty Felton, but was just interesting to see him in that role. And then talked to him after practice, and he talked about just how voluminous this playbook is, how much he's working to absorb it, and you could tell he's taking pride in that, which I thought was pretty good. And he even mentioned, like, you want to learn all of the offense from each position, and that's part of the reason, it's part of an interesting question, is like, in the event that Jordan Addison gets suspended, can Ty Felton be up to speed enough with all of the receiver positions on this offense to be versatile the way that Justin Jefferson and Jalen Naylor obviously will be? And if he can, maybe you can play with more 11 personnel. And if he can't, maybe you're pigeonholed more and you got to play with more 21 with a fullback or 12 with two tight ends. So I enjoyed speaking with Ty Felton today. You could tell he's really enjoying it. You can sense the motivation. And this is probably ridiculous to say, but it took 5 minutes of speaking with them today for the first time to recognize, like, I could understand why the Vikings would want to bet on the person that he might be in that room. So looking forward to continue to watch him and seeing, like, how many reps he is taking kind of from the special teams perspective and in kick returns and punt returns. Two other guys I'll mention, and they're not like mind-blowing, but this is maybe more of like the fantasy angle. TJ Hawkinson looks great. JJ threw to him multiple times today. They met up actually in Nashville a few weeks ago. TJ, I think, had been saying to JJ that he should come to Nashville, watch them work out, spend some time, play some golf. JJ picked some dates, went down, and they made it happen, and sounded like they had a blast doing it. And so I just, the combination of TJ Hawkinson coming off the year that was last year, with him coming, it's taken half the year to return from the torn ACL, having the healthy offseason, knowing that 2 seasons ago he had 90 catches and was just massive for this offense, and then just recognizing the relationship that he's building with JJ, I feel pretty good about maybe the trajectory of what TJ Hawkinson could provide this team this year. And then the other guy, I mean, and it's just not that much of a surprise, but Jordan Addison, I mean, even the small detail of, like, after practice, most of the guys have gone in and he's on the jugs catching passes. And, like, I don't know if I can recall him doing that in the time that I've been here. He looks like he's put on some weight. Run after catch is going to be a big priority for this team this year, in a way that it's not like it hasn't been, but I think the Vikings ranked like 26 last year in yards after catch per reception, and improving that would be one minor way that this offense can just squeeze more out of the orange. And so with Jordan adding some weight, like, he's never going to be a massive guy. He's always going to be the silky smooth route runner. Like, that's the type of player he is. But he looks good. And then again, like, just seeing him on the jugs afterwards, it's just something that stands out to me. I mean, there was a similar, like, I led my story for Thursday with this, but late in the practice, J.J. McCarthy tried to pass to Justin Jefferson. It was kind of in double coverage. You might have heard the footsteps. Probably not worth any physical contact at this point in training camp, but Justin probably could have caught the ball. He didn't, and he came back to the line of scrimmage and was, like, doing push-ups as, like, a self-punch, which I thought was pretty funny. But, like, that's the leader he is. That's setting the tone from day one. So that was good to see. Maybe a couple other things, like Kevin O'Connell talking Wednesday. He was asked about the running backs, and he made kind of an offhand comment of, like, who knows, maybe we'll have Jordan Mason and Aaron Jones lined up together. And I was thinking, like, man, that'd be a fascinating pony package type strategy that you've seen teams like the Packers use in recent years, probably even the Lions as well. Like, just another gadget type of shift. It was good to see Rondale Moore out there today. Looking forward to seeing kind of his versatility and just, like, mobility and agility over time. And then Will Fries was out there a little bit, not a ton in the team drills, but just gigantic human being. And when he wasn't out there in team, you had Blake Brandell at right guard, you had Donovan Jackson at left guard. So to me, that was I saw after practice Chris Cooper working one-on-one with Donovan Jackson, which was good to see for sure. And so, that's about it. That for day one, inside with a little bit of a shorter practice, probably than was expected had it have been outside. That's probably those are the nuggets. Those are the takeaways. For more, I'd recommend going to check out the full story over at The Athletic. But thank you guys for being here. We're going to be back with a guest later this week, and I'll probably take some questions from you guys. We'll give more of observations from Thursday and what I see. So stay locked in. Please be reading over at The Athletic. And I had something Friday on. I had provided a fan survey, had like 3,800 responses on fan expectations for the season, realistic expectation for JJ McCarthy. All of that was very, very good stuff. So going to have that Friday. And then we're back next week with chock full of more stories to come. So thank you guys for being here. Episode 100 coming up. Like I said, you do three things. You enter this giveaway. You hit the subscribe button on YouTube. You follow us on Instagram, Alec Lewis Show. You follow us on Twitter at Alec Lewis Show. Do those three things. Can win a couple tickets to the Vikings-Falcons game, courtesy of First Resource Bank, which I'm very grateful for them both sponsoring the show and being willing to do that. And then any other questions you got, toss them my way. Love the feedback. Love the communication. Day one. Happy to be back. Here we go, folks. Jersey Mike's has been eaten. Day one is underway. Podcast recorded. Talk to you guys very, very soon.